I make the world graphical.
I add value through my products.
I am an animator.
I am a filmmaker. I develop trends.
I transform designs to reality.
I create environments.
I translate stories to furniture.
I design experiences.
I'm an immersive media designer.
I design mobility.
This is not only a design institute.
This is a design lab.
Join us in our design movement.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of MIT Institute of Design, I, Bhavika, welcome you all to MIT Institute of Design workshop series. Since last 5 years, as a part of Design Connect program, we are interacting with design aspirants through various seminars, webinars, and workshops where experts from industry share their experiences with the young budding designers. This year, we have moved one step ahead where we are engaging design aspirants in the activity. This will help them to get hands-on experience on various topics of design. Today's Design Connect, Anubhav Ki Dastan, a designer's life journey and interaction with Mr. Pritharsh Pushkar. I feel honored to welcome and introduce Mr. Pritharsh Pushkar, Creative Director, Showbiz Experiential Communication, BOS member, Retail and Exhibition Design Department, MIT Institute of Design, MIT ADT University, Pune. According to Mr. Pushkar, studying design at the National Institute of Design was just the beginning of an education that is in continuum. He firmly believes design can never be bracketed into box disciplines. It is a visual and scenarial experience and therefore includes the 2 and the 3 dimensions. He loves the work of Joseph Muller-Brockman as much as he loved the surrealism of Antonio Gaudi, as much as the visual mastery of John Vermeer. His work spans product design, retail and spatial design, brand strategy and development, large format event design, design for social change to design education. I would also like to introduce and welcome Professor Samir Shitut, HOD in charge, Retail and Exhibition Design, MIT Institute of Design, Pune. With more than 14 years of professional and academic experience, along with 8 years in brand experience design, retail and workplace design, design strategy and planning, be able to provide the clients with a holistic perspective. It has also empowered him to lead with a balance of creative pursuits and acumen for business of both the design organization and brand clients alike. The passion for building new retail design strategies for brands and innovative users, customer experience has led him to a purpose that is rewarding as well as constantly inspiring. Now I request Professor Samir Shitut to take over the proceedings of the session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And hi, Pushkar.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
Always good to be here.
Yeah. So, firstly, I would like to know about your journey as a designer.
That's interesting. It's a journey that I am not entirely sure where it started. Are we talking about the journey from the point where I became a design student? That would be slightly misleading because the journey actually happens a little, you have to rewind a little bit from there when you're figuring out what you want to be in your towards the end period of his schooling. I think my journey began somewhere around the time when I was in my 11th. I wasn't exactly sure. That was the time of some great work in Indian advertising. I was a big fan of advertising as print mostly in those times, and some bit of television of motion. Digital was yet in its formative years. I was lucky to have a father who was an artist, so there were a lot of skills that you need today as a designer I picked from him. And I was a huge fan of National Geographic. I used to keep seeing National Geographic prints. So I wanted to be a photographer, I wanted to be an architect, I wanted to make films all at the same time, except I didn't know what. Till NID came up, I applied for it, I did product design, and since then I have worn many hats. I have done all kinds of work, mostly in space, and I studied as a product designer. But I really, to be honest, I use product design skills in my work or in all the work that I've done so far. I do a lot of projects, and most of my work currently encompasses space and brand. That's the area that I'm working in right now, and I foresee that in my near future. And I bring those skills forward. I use the concepts of material, I use the concepts of how material is manipulated into creating interesting forms and surfaces, in creating experiences for brands. And while I'm doing all of this, I do a lot of other things as well, which keep interesting me. By nature, I'm a very restless person. I'm a very fidgety person. I can't sit still. I will keep reading something and making something or doing something or the other. So that also leads me to very interesting things. Let's say, for example, Instagram. I'm very notorious for not being on social media, which has led to some very interesting conversations. That aside, I discovered Instagram as a huge tool for learning, where I could see people that I looked up to, whose work I follow, and some very new work that keeps evolving and appearing on that media that I learn from every day. So the fact that when we talk about journeys, I think that journey is always in a continuum. You never see the end of it, and that's the uniqueness of design, because unlike other professions, there is no real date stamp to when you will end it. Right. You don't have a retirement age. So long as you can think, so long your faculties are in optimal performance, you will be able to design. We've seen some really brilliant design from a lot of people who I used to look up to, not just in my core area of work, but also when we were students, we would see Adrian Frutiger, actually hanging around in our campus, and one would think, okay, he's done it all. He's designed the famous typeface that we all use. It's so ubiquitous that you see it in signage, you see it in body, and it's not something that all of us are unaware of. But to see him still being active and being part of classroom projects and coming and walking down the corridors back at NID and stopping to see some interesting work and just dropping a comment, it gave you this notion that it never stops. A lot of my faculty that I learned from are still active practitioners. One of them in this very institute that you have as a director for ever since this institute came up. So I would like to frame my journey in that lens. While I have done, I've been part of numerous organizations, mostly doing the similar kind of work, sometimes different. I worked with a senior of mine in Delhi, where I did my initial piece of retail design. I did a lot of exhibitions with him. I then moved on to something that was part of the Times of India group, where I was the creative head for the Filmfare and Femina pageants. That was very interesting work, very different what I was doing in Delhi. I was also production designer, original and art director to begin with, for an international reality series called The Amazing Race, which was again very, very different than what I was doing. But all of this involved space, and then I decided to join an education institute as a faculty, and then again I went back doing what I do now, which is essentially creating interesting experiential spaces for brands. So if you look at my trajectory, while all of it has been in the space area, it has traversed that very interesting thing from film to reality television to large format events to brand experiences to exhibitions, and now in this entire, with digital coming up, there is a huge amount of convergence in all of these. And I'm really, I consider myself lucky to have been able to work in all of these spaces, and I now use technology and the power of digital to create very, I wouldn't say holistic, but experiences that appeal to all the senses that we have, whether it's sight, sound, visual, oral, etc., etc. So I'm hoping that this journey continues. It will continue, I hope, and I really I'm excited about new technologies that happen every day, which helps us to push the boundaries a little bit further. And in any case, the world is doing some really, really interesting work, and that keeps extending that journey. So, and that has brought me here, and we are conversing about that journey.
That's great. Actually, looking at your journey, it seems like how much potential a designer has and how much area he can offer into, and can give his or her contribution in the industry. So according to you now, like what is the importance of design in everyday life?
The importance of design cannot be understated by any stretch of imagination. Everything that we see and touch and interface with today has an element of design, whether it's a product, whether it's a bottle, whether it's a screen, whether it's the product devices that we use, the things that we see on the devices, what we call content, everything has an element of design. What design does is it presents very intangible, it lends tangibility to intangible ideas and concepts, right? If you notice, a lot of us belonging to a certain generation remember rotary phones.
Yeah.
You know, those really irritating objects where the redial was the biggest pain in life. And we grew up with those, and we came to the mobile phone, which still had buttons that you would punch in. And now if you look at it, that device has become a large screen. Right? Everything is in graphic form, but it is a graphic form that you interact with, right? It's almost immersive. And the clothes that we wear, while we wear regular, clothes, which we identify as a shirt, a t-shirt, shoe, and whatever, suddenly you have something called a wearable, where you have devices that are embedded in you, gloves that give you biometrics, shoes that record how fit you are or how fit you ought to be. So suddenly these little jumps in technology needs to have a component of design in it to make it, for lack of a better term, whole. Right? And you see it everywhere. Design is ubiquitous. Even, a lot of us take design for granted. It's a package that you see in. You walk into a store and you see a very attractive thing. And what is it? It's nothing but a mix of typography, color, product, materials. And somebody has brought that together. Somebody therefore makes you interested in that, and it makes you spend money, which is brilliant. And I've always been very curious about it, the ability to make people spend, and which is what we do as retail designers. Most people forget that while there is an interior design component of a space, design actually changes people's behavior. It has the power to change people's perception. It has the power to form notions and ideas. It has the ability to decide between two things, and that is the power of design. It has the power to educate, it has the power to form opinions, and therefore the thing that we do cannot be taken for granted ever. You should never take it lightly. It informs us, it connects with things of the past, and it connects things that are going to happen in the future. So in that way, design is very important. It is there in everything that you do. School books are designed, for example. You need somebody, while there A, B, C, D and all of these are concepts, but you need somebody to put these together. It need to put these together in such a way that it helps you form a vocabulary as you grow up. right? It also helps you, let's say for example, during COVID, you know, design informed a lot of things that we did in terms of, not just in terms of signage, but also in terms of signals that safe, not safe. There was a very interesting thing that I had come across some time back when that entire CERN experiment was happening. Scientists at CERN decided to interface the media with a typeface that all of us laugh at as designers, which was Comic Sans. And then it created a huge discussion on social media. You know, you're doing something with CERN, the world is possibly going to come to an end, and you're using Comic Sans. I mean, something is off. But then those guys said for something as serious as that, you needed to bring down, you know, bring the temperature of the room. And Comic Sans kind of made sense. You know, you're using the power, or therefore a power of typography, to tell a very, very alien concept to people who don't know anything about it, right? And that is the power of design.
Right, that's great. I think so. Now there has been a lot of change in the global market and the impact of it, which has come in the Indian market. So how do you see that impact happening in our local market in terms of design?
Are we talking about post-COVID or in general?
In general.
India is a very unique situation. Some of the work that I have done has given me the opportunity to travel in a lot of places. India and China are very unique cultures. We are very, very old cultures. We are very, you know, steeped in a lot of ways we do, which can be frustrating at times, but it's a great opportunity also. We have one of the youngest populations in the world. We have one of the biggest markets in the world. And which is why, I mean, if you go by the entire concept of capitalism and all of that, every brand sees India and China as the holy grail. If you can crack these two markets, you've got it made, because most of the markets globally are saturated. We have a very young population. We have the largest English educated population, which is a huge advantage, unlike China. That makes it a very interesting market. So if you look at it and the amount of scales, if you look at the concept of expansion by scale, we are the perfect place to be for any brand. And so if you notice, all the Nikes to Herman Millers to Bombardier, any brand you name it, is in India right now.
Yeah.
Whether it's an FMCG or whether it's an automotive, you have to be in India if you want to survive. Seriously, it's almost to that level. That said, we are also a very prosperous country, whether you believe it or not. You know, we live in this real dichotomy, and I know there are a lot of conversations that happened recently over two Indias, but that is reality. You have, and therefore you are able to find markets and niches for everyone. You know, I work with brands as diverse as Mercedes-Benz on one side, which is like one end of the spectrum, and the other hand we have Rexona, which is the other end of the spectrum. Right? And you have affordances for each of these things, even, you know, from, let's say, from something right at the top of the spectrum to something at the bottom of the spectrum. And that makes India very interesting. You have different consumer groups, you have different affordances of economies, of price tags. You have very recently, there's this very interesting concept back in Bombay, which is the Geo World Drive, which has brands, which has trench coats for $1 lakh, right? That means something.
Yeah.
And while there is a market for it, and they have every right to indulge in that, on the other hand, I have my traditional market in Dadar and Khar and all of those, which has its own market. You know, I have people in my own family, like, despite me being immersed in brands both as a consumer and as a practitioner, I still have Shekhar Kaka from where we order a kanda batata. So that, I think, you know, that kind of describes how the Indian market works.
Yeah.
You have affordances for everybody. I mean, if you look around us, there are projects. These are student projects, and you look at the spectrum of the work around you. You know, you have a design for a club, to design for a film, to everything. You have Mr. Jeff Bezos with Mr. Shah Rukh Khan here having a conversation, and you have something here as well. So that makes it very interesting.
Yeah, and indeed, like India is now the third largest in terms of retail.
Absolutely.
So that is the reason,
Yeah.
could be, because we have such a big market.
We have a huge market, and that is not going to die down in any way because we have such a young population.
Right.
And you have, therefore, our growth rate ensures that more and more people are able to break that middle class ceiling and move into, because incomes are growing, right? You don't remain static within income bands. Income grows, and that makes us open to different kind of products, different kind of services, different kind of eating experiences, different kind of holiday experiences. And in digital world where you are constantly being influenced and bombarded by new things, you are always, as humans, we are always curious and you always want to try out new things. And as a retail designer, I would say, please try new things.
Great. So now this whole COVID and all which has happened in last 1-2 years, so what do you think has really impacted the market in a significant way?
COVID was scary, but the single biggest impact that has happened is how all of us have woken to digital and the power of digital and tech. Earlier, there used to be this little barrier where, tech is evil. You use tech to do things with gizmos, so to speak. When COVID happened, everything came to a standstill. But human activity doesn't change. We still need to behave as humans. We still need to go and buy things. We still need to go and act as humans and watch and do all of this. And the single biggest impact that has happened on the way we operate is how digital became more pervasive. So if you look at it, the shift from paying cash to having transactions that are completely online. I can now go to my bhaji guy and tell him I don't have cash. He'll say, okay, Google GPay it, right? So that is one big shift, and that has made it more. If I can, now I'll constantly keep going back to examples from retail design because that's what I do, and brand experiences. It has also made it spending more, that much more faster. You're more susceptible to seduction, if I can call it that. And the other thing that has happened is the convergence of technology and content, because all we did during COVID was watch Netflix. Am I allowed to say Netflix? We watched a lot of content, okay, whether it was YouTube or whether it was Hotstar, any platform that you can call it. That is the other thing. And now brands are increasingly waking up to the fact of that it is not just enough to do exhibition.
Yeah.
It is not just enough to have a brand space. It's not enough just to do a pop-up. What has happened in terms of the brand environment is experiences. So it is all a net sum of all of these experiences, these tiny touch points put together into what is now called a brand experience. So it's experience driven by digital to be able to reach bigger and bigger markets because it's more impactful. It can be programmed, it can be tracked, and you can use data analytics to be very precise about what you want to sell, whom you want to sell, and how you want to sell.
Yeah. So I think technology has helped in a way to fast forward that.
Yes, absolutely. It has really accelerated. I mean, those 2 years really accelerated the way we interface with technology. And it surprised me because, the adaptation of technology, which a lot of us used to philosophize and, moan about, it will not work in a country like India. And we have taken we adapted it very fast and very actively, which is always a good sign.
That's true. So how do you see these trends like which are emerging out of that in terms of retail? Where do you see that?
A lot of it we had already been doing before COVID hit us.
Yeah.
We, like you said, that has only accelerated it. So now if you look at it, we buy mostly everything online, right? When COVID happened, you couldn't go out shopping for basic groceries. So you have an Amazon pantry, right? You can't go out to the market. So you have a delivery system, which was an app driven. right? We've locked in for a year. I'm missing my favorite restaurant. I have that food delivered to me. I don't go out to eat, and the restaurant has now converted into a cloud kitchen who uses an app to take my order and delivers me through another app, which is a delivery system, and everybody is happy, right? That entire retail cycle has maintained itself. The scales are different, yes, I'll agree to that. There is a lot of discussion on that, but the basic concept has just evolved into a new system, into a new way of doing things.
Yeah.
We buying everything online, right? You buying fashion online, you buying groceries online, you buying pet food online, you buying vehicles online, you buying anything that you name it. There is a dark web if you want to buy an AK-47, but that's a different story. And with now, there is a huge amount of talk of the metaverse, and subliminally a lot of brands have already been, taking baby steps in that, especially in fashion. So you could try out an outfit before you wear it. So these are baby steps, and these will get reinforced as we go with time, especially because bandwidth is growing. We moved from G to 3G, and now we have 5G, and we're moving to fiber. So greater amount of data processing, better systems, better devices, and faster and more efficient devices, and this thing will only grow. You cannot stop it. Mr. Musk is planning trips to Mars. So this is now we've opened a box that we can't put the genie back into it, and it's up to us as consumers and designers as to what we want to take from it to make things better for the system, better for humanity. There are a lot of issues concerning the world right now, and how we use design to make efficient systems and better delivery systems. So that is not going to change.
So in one of our conversation, you mentioned that how technology now is becoming an integral part of design. Like you can't just focus on one aspect. Like you have to have 360-degree understanding of what is happening in technology field as well. So you have to be in line with that. So like you said that some of your projects, that there are some hybrid models which are coming up, like digital and offline both, and the companies are trying to integrate that together. So according to you, the influence of technology in terms of retail design, which is like selling, for example, cars, so how do you see that?
Right now we are in a space where data analytics will tell me exactly who to address. Okay, I know there are softwares that tell you right now how many people are looking at MIT Institute of Design right now as a career option. Why? Because everybody is online, and the moment you're online, you are part of a system where I know what you're up to, and that helps me target you as a consumer. Okay, so I know I get direct feedback from data analytics. That helps me determine what product I should be addressing at what consumer, and how to do it. Because I know, once I know my consumer, I know how I can address or tweak or use the design process or use systems thinking, etc., all of the tools that we use as designers. We are very evil that way. And use targeted marketing to engage with customers. And it's not just the selling process. You have to keep the consumer retained within that brand experience, because there are numerous other competitors, and you don't want my consumer going to the competition. So we use all the power and of digital and all the traditional tools of design with various ways to engage the consumer both in online space and in offline space to keep him retained within the brand system. That is the consumer side of things. Okay, from a non-consumer, from the, let's say, the brand standpoint, if I were to look at it, I realize now that digital has become a very, very effective tool to reach out to an audience. I don't really need to go, earlier when we were kids, and I actually grew up in a very small town, and we used to have this very unique concept, which was great fun. So essentially had this auto rickshaw, which would be plastered with that film's poster, and that it had these massive loudspeakers, and they would just go around, the countryside blaring out songs and with a bunch of snot-nosed kids chasing it. It was great fun to watch,
Yeah.
You don't need to do that. You don't need to be the town crier going and shout, yelling in the town square about something. Digital does that for you. You're able to engage more people with that tool, because everybody has devices and everybody is in some sort of a social media platform, whether it's Snapchat, whether it's TikTok, or whether it's Instagram or Instagram Reels or Facebook or any of these things, right? All of us are on that. And brands have become savvy to find niches and to use that tool or appropriate that tool to reach out to audiences. And that is a very interesting space, both as designers, as somebody who would own a brand, and also as consumers, because I have the luxury of way too many things that come to me without me making an effort.
Exactly. So basically we have to use technology as a tool to change people's life. So,
and also if you look at it, technology from a design perspective, devices have become brilliant now. I can do most of my work on a tablet, right? They're that powerful. I can do a lot of my photo editing on my phone. I have Photoshop on my phone. When we were students working on Photoshop used to be such a pain because the computer won't support it, or you would have worked on something and there'll be this little thing that would keep going and going, and that death is imminent, and now you don't have to worry about those things because computing power is so brilliant. You can store things on cloud. You have software whose potential to create amazing things is out of this universe. So it's a great convergence, and it's a great time to be a designer, in my opinion, if you look at technology from a designer standpoint.
Yeah. So I was just coming to that, like now we have participants watching. So what would you like to tell them in terms of fundamentals? What they should focus on as a designer?
Okay, now this is a slightly tricky area, because there are the technologists and there is old school, and I kind of traverse that bridge. While there are two aspects to design, it's not just enough to say ki, okay, I know the software and I know how to use it, and that makes me a designer. The designer, and now add the layer of technologies to this, which are the technologies I was talking earlier in terms of data and all of these things. You need serious thinking and a serious thought process, and it's a term that has been done to death, and which I now have huge problems with. It's called think out of the box, and you literally have to do that, because you'll find generalists by the millions. What differentiates you from someone else, or what makes you superior to someone else, is your ability to be able to approach a situation, and I'm not calling a problem area, a situation, because a lot of things may not be problem areas anymore. You're just trying something new because technology allows you to do that now.
Yeah.
But to use technology and use the power of design thinking and using traditional tools of sketching and all of that, and the knowledge of all of these years that people have done before us, you take a mix of that and you come up with something great. Because anybody can learn a software, right? Anybody can manipulate a tool in a software, and a lot of them people do it brilliantly. I've seen a lot of people without a design education do brilliant things on software, but what is really missing in that process is critical thinking, and which is what the design process does, or design thinking does, is to be able to see through the BS and be able to forge a path that that makes sense in that context, and that is a single biggest differentiator. I still draw. I mean, it's a dying craft, and I still draw. Draw helps me think. I still make notes. I use a lot of paper, which is not very environmentally friendly. I've been wanting to convert to a tab, but I like the feel of paper and lead. It's something very something amazing. And those are things for posterity. I have sketchbooks that I don't want to throw out because they're nice, and that helps me think. So that is the traditional old school ways of doing this. So once I have formulated a large part of the design on paper, that's when I either move on to software or I take it to somebody in my team who then does the detailing that software is better to do with. Softwares are faster. Softwares have inbuilt tools to do these things now. And it's better to do some things on, not better, it's always good to do some things on software because it's better, it's designed for that. There's no point trying to beat that and saying, oh no, I'll stick to this or I'll stick to that. We're not in that world anymore. We have to be able to bridge these two schools of thought or these two processes because both have their merits.
Right.
And you need a brain.
Yeah, that's what. So now I think students, nowadays we are seeing that there is a lot of technology is involved in the process and they're very tech savvy. And what do you see the future lies there in terms of their approach towards design? So will it overtake that part or they should focus on the fundamentals?
When you say tech savvy, it's a comfort with tech. Okay, it's a comfort to use the tech. The tech will not let you think. It's not, we are not in that space yet. I remember watching Terminator 2 and I thought the world will be very different in 2020. We are in 2020, nothing has changed. We still use a brain to think.
Right.
So that part of the process can never be discounted. Okay. Tech will always enhance the process. It will make things faster, no doubt. It will make things more efficient. Because in design, let's say for example, the areas of design that we work in has a lot of processes to it. There is a build process, there is a inventory process, etc., etc. So tech really is able to bridge those time lags very quickly. If I were to do that manually, I would pull half my hair out. That's not a very great thing. Frustration is a huge part of being a designer. So tech helps you overcome these frustrations. It streamlines things. It makes processes simpler. It is designed for human efficiency. What it also does, let's say I'll give you for example, we used to use AutoCAD, a long time ago to create plans and stuff. I don't use AutoCAD anymore. Then AutoCAD built layers and layers of efficiency into it to a point where I can now arrive at a cost by the time I have finished my drawings. Right, so it has created that efficiency. Earlier, you would have entire teams working on that cost over days, which now I'm able to do it in a very short span of time. Right. On the other hand, considering designers are not very well known for our efficiency of time because that is how we work.
Creative process.
Creative process always has push and pulls and whatever. You have now apps that increase those efficiencies of how much time you are able to spend in a project, which is a great thing. It organizes my life. A lot of times I wish it wasn't that effective, but it really helps, right? So while you still need to use your inherent skills and your inherent design process by using this very nice thing called a brain, you cannot discount technology as well. So they will go hand to hand. They have to go hand to hand. Otherwise it will be the rise of the machines and humanity will be taken over like in Terminator.
Okay, great. We'll take few questions if there are any from the participants. So, I think we can also talk about what is the future is going to be for the designers in this whole change which has happened post-COVID.
In the near future, I don't see a great amount of change. It's obviously given the way where we are as in this entire universe vis-a-vis all of that we are facing right now. But technology-wise, it will be a great time to do things, because right now, let's say for example, I work a lot in immersive technology, and that has led to a huge amount of innovation. It allows me to do a lot of things that I could not have dreamt of, let's say even 5 years or 10 years earlier. I can create environments that are immersive, that are absolutely virtual, and because it's virtual, it gives me huge amount of leeway for creativity, and I have softwares to actually create those environments and those experiences. So being a designer at this point in time is a good place to be in. You know, whether you are doing products, or whether you are doing graphics, or whether you are doing retail, or whether you are doing interiors, it's a great time to be a designer. Also because a lot of corporations and enterprises are now seeing design not in terms of just visuality, that designers make pretty things and pretty objects and all of that, but how the design process and systems thinking is able to brings that ability to think differently, you know, to break new ground, to find new markets, to find new opportunities, and that is something that no other education does, right? A lot of corporations have set up, have their top management undergo a design process workshop or a systems thinking workshop, because they've been programmed to think of a certain way, right? And that is limiting. While the design process forces you to think in different ways, right? So you arrive at very different conclusions that you probably would have not even thought of, right? So in that way, it's a great time to be a designer, both from the client side as well as the practitioner side.
Okay.
And of course, digital also creates new ways to build things. You know, so I have technology wherein I can create parametry very easily.
Okay, thank you. So we have Ishavari Rane who wants to ask question.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, the question is like, as you explained, like we have to go hand in hand with the technology nowadays, because without a technology we can't like even survive and sustain. So as you said that we do the manual sketching right now, yeah. But so and right now we don't have any exposure to all the softwares or the tools. So will the design schools teach us how to use those softwares like Photoshop or something else, like the way you said that you like sketching and you still do the sketching, but the detailing will be done with the software. So that software part, will it be taught in the design schools, or just the traditional way, like just how to think and all that? That's what I or we have to learn all these softwares or the technology on our own. That's what was my question.
Okay.
So if I have been able to understand you correctly, you worried that the design detailing part that happens on a software, whether design curriculum includes that or not? Is that
so
what I understand?
Yeah, basically the software part will be taught in the design education.
Absolutely. Design education also has evolved over time, and you cannot, like I said, because a large part of our lives will be with software. Software is like the second layer to sketching, which are traditional skills, and they are part of the process. I mean, they are part of the design curriculum. One undergoes if I'm right, if I'm not wrong, one computer module every year,
Yeah.
increasing in complexity. So you start out with basic softwares, depending on which discipline you are. If you're in graphics, you will probably do the entire Adobe suite in terms of Photoshop, Illustrator, etc., etc. If you are in industrial design, you will do AutoCAD, 3D, Max, Maya, Rhino, depending on which exact discipline you are in, and that will over time, then you as a practitioner will have to build on that basic knowledge and be good at it, so that you can communicate to the larger audience out there as to how good or not good you are. But yes, software is an inherent and core part of the curriculum. I hope I am able to address your...
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, see, the concern was like in last 2-3 years, not much of the touch in any software or any computer related, because purely now in the design, it is okay, like sketching and all that we do. But then manual I was doing, and then I was not that like, we can't say right now that whether I'm good or bad in using those softwares, because right now we have not touched any software for all these things. So that's why was my question. But thank you so much, sir, so for clarifying my terms. Thank you.
Yeah. Ashwadhi wants to ask next.
Yeah, hi, this is Rajesh here. I'm Ashwadhi's father. She's also with me attending the session. So, while this was a great session, we got some thought process around, how does a designer's life actually is. So, as part of that, one of the things that, at least from my perspective, I've understood is earlier, we used to think designer as, he stated, the guest stated that it's all about creating fancy designs or fancy sketches, and then that's what a designer's life is. That's what was the understanding. But however, with this session and other sessions that we have attended, we got to know that it's much more than that. It's primarily about conceptualizing a solution to any problem that we identify, right? So from that perspective, I have a question. How does one train oneself to be able to identify problem? Probably that's a simpler thing, but thinking in a creative way to come up with solutions. So is it something that has to be innately there within you, or is it something that we learn over a period of time and then you become really good at coming up with creative solutions? And I believe that's what matters when you want to be a designer with, what do you call, a great designer, if I can call it so.
Interesting. I think there is creativity in all of us, while some of us are more left-brained than right-brained. And traditionally, it has been generally seen, if I'm able to draw, I'm creative. While drawing is a part of the creative process, it is not the creative process. And you have tools within the design curriculum that help you arrive at that ability to look at problems through various perspectives, to be able to empathize through different stakeholders. And like you rightly said, design is a very serious business. It involves, there is a lot of budgets for design, there is a lot of stake. Each time there is a new product to be launched or a new product to be designed, etc., etc. I think in terms of, let's say, for as a non-designer, I'm not entirely sure as to how we address things, because it's a design process that helps us determine that way of to be able to see at things from different perspectives. Yeah. I remember, if I were to go back in time and look at my own batch, a lot of us just couldn't draw to save our lives, honestly. because it was generally perceived that, oh, if you can draw well, you should be able to design. It doesn't quite work that way. There are a lot of designers who really can't draw to save their lives. Yeah, I mean, over time they develop that tool, but it's the design process that actually helps us see things from different perspectives, through different stakeholders, to empathize with different stakeholders, to put yourself in that place, through those lenses, to be able to differentiate between various factors. And it is that singular ability that you do through the design process is that what helps you think differently. I was a complete newbie when I entered design school. I had no idea of what design is, unlike a lot of young people who come into design every year. It's very frustrating. There's a lot of jealous factor here, but given the tools that they have to understand what design is, but it's always, while all of that is great, you always come to a point in that first year of the course in the design process that actually helps you to figure these things out. Until such time it's mostly skill courses, till such time you come to the design process, which essentially are, now when I've done all of this as a student and now when I practice, I know that all of those skills were leading up as ways to communicate the design process, which is essentially a thinking process. So, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that. What answered actually was the last bit that you stated, saying that when you joined the institute, you were also very new to it. Why this question that was asked is basically, my daughter now suddenly gets a feeling that, boss, okay, now this is more about creative thinking. So am I good at it? Will I be good at it? Earlier it was all about, okay, being able to sketch. Okay, so I'm good at sketching, but am I good at being creatively thinking about coming up with solutions? Is what she had a thought process after understanding what is design and what is a designer's day-to-day life all about. So that's why this question was asked, and I believe it's as you said, it's a process of learning. As you go through the entire process, entire course, probably you will be better at coming up with creative solutions. So thank you for that.
Thank you, sir. So we have Anjali Naik. She also wants a follow-up question which Ishwari asked about the software thing. So she wanted to know whether MDES also offers the similar program. So in terms of the skills. So I just want to clarify that since some of the students who come to us from different background, non-design background, so we spend like first semester with them just to align them with our design process. And people who come from non-design background, we teach them fundamental skills which are required. And from the next semester onwards, then we start focusing on the more domain specific skills.
Yeah. There is very famously this concept in design called unlearning, because we come from a lot of different backgrounds and you're trying to build parity within that entire group to be on a common platform to be able to absorb all these skills and not let your previous biases overrule that. And from another perspective, it's a compacted course.
Yeah.
But the basic skills will always be there, because those are tools common to every designer, irrespective of whether you're doing MDes or BDes. Those things will never go. You will have to sketch. You will have to do the hard yards. That's common for every designer in every discipline, in every part of the world. Right?
Yeah. So, can we have the next question? So, Mahika wants to ask a question.
Good afternoon, sir. Yeah, so I have a question that what are the ways in which we can prepare ourselves to get into a designing school, and moreover, taking design as a career, what are the pathways that we can choose?
Oh, this is interesting. How do you prepare yourself for a career in design? Okay, now you have, considering how huge design is as a profession, you have help now. You have all these coaching centers like Silicas and all of this who prepare you for a career in product design. And I won't go into the merits or demerits of that, but that is one path. And what you want to do, design, I believe at this is something very difficult to ascertain before you actually choose that discipline, because the first year of the design curriculum actually forms your ability to work either in two-dimensional design, which is mostly graphics and UI and that part of the design spectrum, or whether you're good in three-dimensional design, in which case you will probably end up doing product design, or you will end up doing furniture or space, etc. So I think it would be a little presumptive to think that you will be able to decide right at the onset as to what you want to do further down in life. I wanted to do something else. I ended up doing something else. I ended up studying something else, and I'm doing something else completely different right now. But I use all the faculties of design to form my experiences that are not design. So I would suggest, let things take the course, undergo the first year. You'll be at a better position to figure out what you want to do in life from there on.
Sneha Bhosle, she wants to ask, like, can specialization be decided by student, or it is decided after first year?
This is something that I just spoke about. I would suggest, and this is my personal opinion, that let things play out in the first year. The design curriculum in the first year is designed in such a way that it helps you determine whether you want to do two-dimensional design or you want to three-dimensional design. While there are natural proclivities to before you decide to join the design education system, because you are interested in certain things. But I've often found that things are way of surprising you, and you find new things that are more interesting than what you began with. So I would suggest, let the first year play itself out. You will be in a better position to determine what you do thereon.
Yeah, I think discover yourself, what you want to do,
absolutely.
instead of, yeah. So we have one more question. How can we increase our creativity skills?
Oh my God, this is something I think I would like to ask everyone else as well. No real answer to this. I think one of the biggest things that you can probably do this is to be curious, to be relentlessly curious, to be able to absorb. I remember somebody had told me once, which is something I love as a phrase, is to absorb like a sponge. Read everything, decide for yourself whether that works for you or not. See everything, watch films, be a part of popular culture, learn new things, learn new experiences. Probably the more knowledge you have, the more informed you are in terms of the ability to tap into certain things into your creative process. I think that's the way I operate. So I don't know whether that helps you, but I think it should.
Great. So I think that's all for now. I mean, it was wonderful talking to you.
Always great being back.
Yeah, and thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
Being part of this, and we look forward to meet you again.
Same here.
Thank you. So over to you now, Bhavika.
Thank you, sir. I would like to take the opportunity to thank Mr. Prithvish Pushkar and Professor Samir Shitut. Thank you so much, sir, for the most interesting and inspiring session. It was truly an enriching session, sir. Thank you to all the coordinators and technical team for their support. Thank you all for giving us your precious time.
I make the world graphical.
I add value through my products.
I am an animator.
I I'm a filmmaker. I develop trends.
I transform designs to reality.
I create environments.
I translate stories to furniture.
I design experiences.
I'm an immersive media designer.
I design mobility.
This is not only a design institute.
This is a design lab.